The camera pans over a bustling airport terminal. Passengers rush past, some in casual clothes, others in business suits, all with varying levels of excitement or exhaustion. The sound of announcements echoes in the background as travelers make their way through security, check-in counters and gates. The air is filled with the usual noise of an airport, the hum of conversations, rolling luggage, and distant calls from flight attendants. Cut to the gate where passengers begin boarding the plane. Some smile as they check their tickets, others seem rushed, eyes glued to their phones. The camera focuses on a few key passengers. A middle-aged, well-dressed man, the racist passenger, stands near the boarding area, checking his watch, clearly impatient. He mutters under his breath about the delays. His tone is a mix of frustration and entitlement. Around him, other passengers move past without noticing him, chatting casually amongst themselves. Some smile at the flight attendants as they pass by. The atmosphere is typical, people excited for their journey, lost in their own worlds. As the man steps toward the plane, he mutters to the flight attendant in an irritated tone, "Is this flight always so disorganized? Or is it just today? I mean, they could at least have a better boarding process." He steps onto the plane and proceeds down the narrow aisle. He looks at his seat number, slightly annoyed as he maneuvers past people already seated. He eyes the flight attendants as they help other passengers, throwing subtle glances of discomfort their way. They notice him but continue with their work. It's clear he isn't someone who likes to be told what to do, or perhaps he feels he is above the small inconveniences of air travel. He takes his seat and huffs as he sits down. Looking around, he spots a black flight attendant and raises an eyebrow, his expression showing clear discomfort, but he doesn't say anything out loud. He watches as she walks past, maintaining a professional demeanor, her uniform spotless and her smile warm. The camera lingers on his face, capturing the slight frown, before he turns to his neighbor and comments casually, as though talking about the weather. "Can you believe they have a black pilot for this flight? Hope we're in good hands." This comment is quiet enough to seem innocent, but it is clearly laced with prejudice. His discomfort with the situation is palpable, and his attempt to make others share his doubt feels almost like a challenge to anyone nearby. The camera cuts to the cockpit, where we see the black pilot preparing for takeoff. The pilot is seated in the captain's chair, his movements measured and calm. His uniform is crisp, his posture confident. We get a brief glimpse of his face, composed, focused, and professional. His hands work the controls with practiced ease, adjusting settings on the console. In a quiet but authoritative voice, he speaks into his headset, confirming with the ground crew that all preparations are in order. There's a hint of experience in his tone, a leader at the helm of this aircraft, commanding attention without needing to assert dominance. His professionalism stands in contrast to the tension slowly building in the cabin below. The camera zooms in on the pilot's hand as he adjusts the final settings on the flight plan. His movements show an air of confidence. He's prepared, experienced, and capable. As we see him speak into the intercom, his voice is steady and reassuring, making sure everything is set for a smooth flight. We don't know much about his background yet, but it's clear he's the kind of person who takes pride in his work and is in full control of the situation. As the flight begins its ascent, the cabin settles into the usual hum of the aircraft. Most passengers are settling into their seats, some watching movies, others listening to music, while a few are catching up on work. However, the racist passenger seems agitated, his mood darkening as the minutes pass. His comments, though initially subtle, start to grow more direct. He leans over to his seatmate, a middle-aged woman sitting next to him, and speaks in a voice that's just loud enough for others to hear. "Can you believe it? A black pilot. How did someone like him get this job?" The woman looks uncomfortable and shifts in her seat, giving him a nervous smile, clearly not wanting to engage. But the racist passenger is undeterred. He continues, this time louder, as if trying to rally support from those around him. "Why is he in charge of this flight? I don't feel safe. I've always been fine with pilots who actually know what they're doing. But now," a few passengers nearby overhear him. One of them, an older man, shoots him a disapproving look. Another woman, sitting a few rows ahead, turns her head slightly in his direction, but remains silent, clearly uncomfortable but unwilling to get involved. The tension in the cabin is palpable, but it doesn't escalate immediately. Despite the discomfort in the air, the racist passenger continues, now louder and more insistent, as if trying to convince himself and those around him of his point. "Imagine trusting your life to someone like that. It's just ridiculous." The flight attendant, a calm and composed woman, notices the increasing discomfort in the cabin as the racist remarks grow bolder. She's already aware of the situation but has been trying to maintain a neutral presence, ensuring all passengers are comfortable. However, the comments are now too loud to ignore. She approaches the racist passenger with a polite smile, her voice warm but firm. "Sir, I understand your concerns, but I assure you, Captain Harris is a highly experienced pilot with over 15 years in the industry. He's fully qualified and we have no reason to believe there will be any issues with the flight." The racist passenger looks up at her with a skeptical expression, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Yeah, right. 15 years, huh? Tell me, does he have the same qualifications as someone who actually deserves the job?" The flight attendant's smile falters for a moment, but she maintains her composure. "I assure you, sir, the captain's qualifications and experience are more than sufficient to ensure your safety on this flight." But the racist passenger isn't satisfied. His frustration only grows as he gets more vocal, ignoring the flight attendant's reassurances. He leans forward in his seat, his voice rising. "I want to speak to the captain. Right now. Or better yet, the airline manager. I don't feel safe with this guy flying us." By now, the situation is beginning to escalate. A few passengers glance nervously at each other, their unease becoming more apparent. One passenger, a young man sitting across the aisle from the racist passenger, exchanges a look with the flight attendant, signaling that he's heard enough. The flight attendant, now realizing that the situation could potentially get out of hand, signals to a senior flight crew member. A tall, no-nonsense flight manager approaches the racist passenger's seat. His voice is calm but firm as he addresses the issue. "Sir, I understand you're upset, but our pilot, Captain Harris, has a solid record and is more than capable of ensuring a safe flight for everyone on board. If you continue to express your concerns in this manner, I may have to ask you to remain quiet for the duration of the flight." The racist passenger's eyes narrow, and he raises his voice again. "I'm not going to sit here quietly while you put my life in the hands of someone like him. This is ridiculous. I demand to speak to someone who can do something about this." The flight manager remains calm but firm. "Sir, we've already addressed your concerns. Continuing to disrupt the cabin won't be tolerated." As the conversation continues, the racist passenger grows louder, now completely ignoring the warnings. His defiance begins to irritate other passengers, but most still remain quiet, uncertain of what to do next. A few passengers glance at each other nervously, their discomfort growing as the conflict becomes more public. Up in the cockpit, the black pilot has been listening to the growing tension in the cabin through his intercom system. He's not one to ignore an issue, especially when it involves the safety and comfort of his passengers, but he remains calm and composed. The pilot understands that the situation could escalate further if left unchecked. He decides that it's time to address the issue, but he does so with grace and professionalism, without directly confronting the racist passenger. After a brief pause, the pilot's voice comes over the intercom, clear and steady, with a reassuring tone that fills the cabin. "Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is your captain speaking. I'd like to take a moment to thank you for choosing to fly with us today. We understand that air travel can sometimes bring its challenges, but I want to assure you all that we are committed to your safety and comfort throughout this journey." The passengers, who have been growing increasingly uneasy with the situation, listen intently. The racist passenger, however, stirs in his seat, muttering under his breath. He doesn't know what's coming, but he certainly doesn't like the sound of the pilot addressing the cabin in this way. "I've been flying for over 15 years, and I've had the privilege of working with some of the most talented and dedicated people in the aviation industry. I'm proud to be one of the many pilots, flight attendants, and staff who come from diverse backgrounds. And no matter where we come from, we all share a common goal: ensuring that every passenger has a safe, smooth, and enjoyable flight." His words are simple, yet powerful. He doesn't call out anyone specifically, but the message is clear. It's a call for inclusivity, respect, and professionalism. He continues, "We take pride in our work, and we believe that a diverse team brings strength to our operations. We are all here to serve you, and I want to personally reassure you that your safety is our top priority." The pilot finishes with a warm, sincere tone. "Thank you for your attention, and we're here to make your journey as comfortable as possible. Sit back, relax, and let us take care of the rest." The cabin is quiet for a moment after the pilot's announcement. The passengers exchange looks, some nodding in quiet agreement, others visibly relaxed by the pilot's confident and inclusive words. A few passengers who had been uncomfortable during the exchange start to clap gently, showing their support. Others follow suit, and soon the applause spreads across the cabin. The sounds of clapping fill the space, along with a few smiles and knowing glances between passengers. The racist passenger is left in stunned silence. He shifts uncomfortably in his seat, his face reddening as the collective support for the pilot becomes impossible to ignore. He tries to look around, but he's met with cold stares from several passengers who had overheard his earlier comments. There's no longer any room for doubt. The tone of the flight has completely shifted. A woman a few rows behind the racist passenger leans toward her seatmate and whispers loudly enough for him to hear, "I think we're all in good hands now." Another passenger, sitting near the front, leans over to the flight attendant and smiles, giving a small thumbs up. The attendant nods in acknowledgement, grateful for the pilot's calm and professional handling of the situation. The racist passenger, now fully aware that he's outnumbered and outclassed, avoids eye contact with anyone. He crosses his arms and leans back in his seat, his demeanor changing from defiance to embarrassment. His earlier sense of superiority crumbles as he realizes that no one is on his side, and the pilot's announcement has not only reassured the others but his bothers. It has also called out his prejudice, without a single word, aimed directly at him. The once confident and outspoken racist passenger now slouches in his seat, visibly deflated. His earlier bravado is gone, replaced with a heavy sense of discomfort. He shifts uncomfortably, glancing around at the passengers who had been clapping in support of the pilot, feeling the weight of their disapproving looks. He avoids making eye contact with anyone, his gaze fixed on the back of the seat in front of him, almost as if he's trying to become invisible. His hands are clasped tightly in his lap and his posture is tense, a stark contrast to the casual and entitled demeanor he had when he boarded the plane. He hears a few more whispers, some from the passengers near him, others from behind. He can't make out their words, but he knows they're talking about him. The once bustling cabin now feels like it's closing in around him. The small talk, the laughter, the calm conversations, all of it seems to highlight his isolation. He's out of place now, his prejudice laid bare for all to see. His face reddens, and his shoulders slump in defeat. The racist passenger is now fully aware of the consequences of his actions. The support for the pilot and the flight crew, the collective rejection of his prejudiced views, has left him feeling humiliated and isolated. His earlier attempts to assert dominance have crumbled, and the passengers around him now symbolize the unity and strength of diversity. The tension in the cabin continues to hang in the air. One passenger, a young woman who had overheard the racist comments earlier, decides that it's time to confront the situation directly. She had been quietly fuming throughout the flight, but now, seeing the racist passenger in his isolated state, she feels it's her responsibility to speak up. She stands up from her seat and makes her way toward him. The cabin falls silent for a moment, and the attention of several passengers shifts to her. The racist passenger tries to avoid looking at her, but she stops in front of him, her expression serious but calm. "Excuse me," she says firmly, but with a quiet confidence, "I couldn't help but overhear your comments earlier. You know, what you said was wrong. There are people on this plane who work really hard to get where they are, and we all deserve respect, no matter our race, our background, or our job. The captain is an expert, he's in charge because he's the best person for the job." She pauses, giving him a moment to respond, but he doesn't. He shifts uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze, his lips pressed tightly together. She continues, her voice unwavering, "If you can't respect that, maybe you should take a long, hard look at how you're treating others. You don't know them, and you sure as hell don't know me. But I know this, we're all equal here, and I'll stand with anyone who stands for that." The rest of the passengers watch, some nodding in agreement, others simply observing, but the racist passenger stays silent. He can feel the weight of the confrontation, and the more he tries to avoid it, the more it seems to intensify. His attempt to deflect with silence only adds to his humiliation. The plane touches down smoothly, the seatbelt signs turn off, and the usual chatter of disembarking passengers fills the cabin. As the flight crew prepares for the disembarkation, passengers begin to gather their belongings. Many passengers who had witnessed the tension earlier exchange smiles, some even nodding in quiet approval. They feel the relief of a calm flight and the reassurance of standing up for what's right. As passengers exit the aircraft, a few of them make sure to approach the black pilot, waiting in the cockpit area, to offer their thanks. The pilot, still calm and composed, smiles graciously as he receives their appreciation. A couple of passengers take a moment to shake his hand, expressing their gratitude for his professionalism and leadership. One older woman stops in front of the cockpit, her expression warm. "Thank you, Captain Harris. You were excellent up there. We're lucky to have you in charge." The pilot responds with a polite, professional smile. "Thank you. It was a pleasure to have you on board." Several other passengers follow suit, offering nods of approval and brief words of thanks. They are clearly moved by his quiet handling of the situation, and their support is a visible contrast to the racist remarks made earlier. In stark contrast, the racist passenger hurries toward the exit, eager to leave as quickly as possible. He can't look anyone in the eye as he walks down the aisle, his shoulders hunched, his pace quick but awkward. He can feel the eyes of other passengers on him, some of them giving him pointed stares, others avoiding him altogether. As he approaches the door, he spots a few people who had clapped in support of the pilot earlier. They make no attempt to engage with him, but their silent disapproval is louder than any words. The racist passenger tries to avoid all interaction, hoping to escape unnoticed, but the discomfort on his face is unmistakable. His hurried exit only highlights his isolation and the consequences of his earlier behavior. One last glance at the flight attendant, who remains composed and professional, and he exits the aircraft, knowing that he has lost any sense of superiority or power he once thought he had. As the scene shifts to the final moments of the story, a voiceover or text on screen appears, reinforcing the message of unity and equality. Racism has no place in our world. Every person, regardless of their background, deserves respect, dignity, and equality. We all share this world, and only by standing up against discrimination can we create a better, more inclusive future. The message resonates as the credits roll or the final scene fades, leaving the audience with a powerful reminder of the importance of respect and standing up for what's right.